Hey guys, so my original video that I made for this was super complicated and the lesson was super complicated. So you might have noticed that it was posted earlier today and then now it's gone and now this one is back. So this is just the new and improved version. I didn't want to make you guys do the crappy, not so great version. All right, and then I recorded a few videos. The last one I recorded, I was like, yeah, this is awesome, but it was like 21 minutes long. So I'm going to try my best to make things a little bit shorter, but still clear to you guys in this video. So today you're going to be taking some notes based on the Electoral College. At the end, you'll be able to answer this question right here. Should we keep the Electoral College? And you're just going to write your answer right here in this Padlet. So far, so good. On time. Okay, so go ahead and get out a sheet of paper if you want to take your notes on a hard copy. Otherwise, you can go ahead and just take your notes on Google Drive. Make sure that you keep these notes somewhere safe. About 10 of the questions on the test will come from these notes. And we're going to have a notes quiz tomorrow, so that way you guys can practice those questions. We'll be allowed to use your notes on those notes quiz. All right, so before you guys take notes, did you know that when you elect the president, when you go and vote in November, you are technically not voting for the president? We're going to go ahead and go through the steps of becoming president in that election and who is actually voting for the president. So, very first heading, primaries. The goal of the primary is to nominate a candidate for each political party. So, Democrats and Republicans have almost a convention where they get together and out of all of the candidates who want to run for president for that party, they choose just one. There are two different types of primaries that your state can have. They could have a closed primary, which means only party members can vote. And this is good in a sense because it prevents opponents from sneaking into that primary and voting for bad candidates. If the bad candidate were to make it, if they got enough like fake votes and the bad candidate made it, it would make it easier for that other political party to win the election. So if Democrats snuck into the Republican primary and they all voted for a weak or bad candidate, and that weak candidate got selected, it would make it easier for the Democrats to beat that candidate, and vice versa. The bad thing about this closed primary is it excludes independent voters who aren't assigned to a political party. Open primaries means anyone can vote. The good thing is that independent voters can participate in this open primary. So they would like this one. May or not be a question on your test. The bad thing is that those weak candidates may be chosen if those other party members wanted to mess things up. If you need more time to write this down, put the video on pause, push play when you're ready. All right, so what is the Electoral College? It's the group of people who officially elect the president. When you go and vote, you're not actually voting for the president. The Electoral College is voting for the president. Who are these mysterious people? Well, they're not as mysterious as you think. They're the representatives that you've chosen and the senators that you've chosen for your state, plus 3 electors from Washington, D.C., because they don't technically belong to a state. They're their own independent district, so they don't have the same representation. So for the Electoral College, they get 3 electors. Go ahead and put the video on pause if you need more time to write this down. Push play when you're ready. All right, so how does it work? This is where things get a little complicated. Each political party is competing to get the majority of electoral votes. Remember, there's 538, so if they get at least 270 or more, then they have the majority needed to win the election. Each state gets electors based on its population size. So remember, in the House of Representatives, the number of representatives that you get is based off the population of that state. Because the Electoral College is based off of the House of Representative members and the Senates, the number of electors each state has is based on their population size. So Minnesota, we have 8 members of the Electoral College and we have 2 senators, so we have a total of 10 electors. Here's where things may be a little unfair, depending on how you view it. There is a winner takes all system in the Electoral College. This means the candidate who wins the majority of elector votes in the state gets all the electoral votes for that state. So we're going to use an example for Minnesota and Wisconsin in our last election. The election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, Minnesota had 10 electors. In that election, those electors, the majority of them voted for Hillary Clinton, but it was really, really close. So let's say 6 of them voted for Hillary Clinton, 4 of them voted for Donald Trump. Because we have that winner take all system, even though only 6 voted for Hillary Clinton, she would get all 10 of those electoral votes. So she has like plus 10 points in her favor, and she needs at least 270. Same thing with Wisconsin. Wisconsin had 10 electors. The majority of them voted for Donald Trump. Let's say that 7 of them voted for Donald Trump and 3 of them voted for Hillary Clinton. Because of that winner takes all system, even though 3 voted for Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump would get 10 points or 10 electoral votes towards his favor, and he needs a minimum of 270. If you need more time to write this down, put the video on pause, push play when you're ready. I think we're doing much better on time. Go ahead, and this can just be added in that same heading, how it works. So when you vote in November, that's when every eligible citizen goes out and votes. They're technically not voting for the president, they're technically voting for their electors, their state representatives. It takes a little while to figure out who the electors are. Those electors then vote, and they're using the information from that popular vote to cast their vote. So even if that elector is a Democrat, if they're the popular vote in their state was for the Republican candidate, that elector will then vote for the Republican candidate. And then a month later, they have the inauguration. This is the first day of that president's term. So whoever won the election, their very first day on the job is January 20th. And that's when they do their inauguration, the official ceremony where they pledge an oath to take care of the United States to the best of their ability. All right, so when you vote on Tuesday in November, you are actually choosing electors. This may or may not be on your test. You are technically not choosing the president. The electors choose the president, but they're going to use the information from that popular vote in order to make their decision. Most states require them to take this faithless elector pledge, which means they're not going to be faithful to their party. They're going to be faithful to the state's popular vote. Now, it is possible to win the popular vote, but lose the electoral vote. So think of those different states and their electoral votes as points. So each state has a different number of points. And they need at least 270 in order to win the election. So because of that winner takes all system, one candidate might do really, really well in a lot of those small states, and they're winning the popular vote. But because of that winner takes all system, there might be one candidate who loses the popular vote, but they got enough votes in those really, really big point states that have a lot of electoral votes, and they were able to win the electoral votes, a minimum of 270, but the majority of people didn't want to vote for them. If you need more time to write that down, go ahead and put the video on pause, push play when you're ready. You might notice in our current election that the candidates are visiting some states a lot more than other states. They're going to visit the swing states more, and here's why. Swing states don't vote consistently for one party. So they might have voted Democrat in the last election and Republican for the one before that, and then they kind of go back and forth between Democratic and Republican. So the political parties are like, I think we can influence that state to swing our way on this election to vote for us. Safe states tend not to be visited by those candidates during an election as much because they tend to vote consistently. They have voted for Democrats for years and years and years and years, and you can safely bet that they're going to vote for the Democratic candidate in the upcoming election, or they voted Republican for years and years and years, and you can safely bet that they're going to vote for the Republican candidate in the upcoming election. If you ever hear a state called a red state, that means that they are one of these safe states that have voted Republican. If you ever hear a state called blue state, that means that they have safely voted for, or they're one of these safe states who have voted for the Democratic candidate in past elections. Sometimes you might hear of some states being called purple, and that means that they've had a mix. Those could be swing states. Go ahead and put the video on pause if you need more time to write this down. Push play when you're ready. Okay, so why do we have this big complicated system? Number one, the founding fathers didn't want political parties to ignore the voices of rural Americans. If they were afraid if they had just a popular vote and they didn't have the electoral college, those candidates would only want to go to places where they get more votes, where there's more people, and there's usually more people in cities. So if we were to take a look at this population density map, they might want to go like over here in New York City, Boston, and some of these East Coast cities, but they're going to ignore these places where there's not a lot of people because they're not going to get as many votes. And so they would completely ignore rural Americans like farmers and so on. The founding fathers also believed the common person wouldn't be informed enough about the issues or the candidates to make a decision. Now, this is kind of insulting to us today because we're like, what, you think we're stupid, founding fathers? But we have access to a lot more information, like almost instantly. With the internet and stuff like that, we can look up those different candidates and know what's going on. Back in the day, though, they obviously didn't have the internet and information was a lot harder to get. They didn't even have newspapers readily available in a lot of those different areas. And a lot of the times, the majority of Americans didn't even know who the candidates were, like who was running for president. Because of the time that they were in, they felt like it would be better if somebody who was in the political world, like those House of Representative members or the senators, were the ones who did the electing because they would be a little bit more in the loop. If you need more time to write this down, go ahead and put the video on pause, push play when you're ready. All right, so how to change the Electoral College? Let's say after doing your research, you're like, oh, we should change it and get rid of it. In order to do this, you'd have to change the Constitution, and that's a really hard thing to do. First, you have to get approval by 2/3 of the House, then you have to get approval by 2/3 of the Senate, and then you have to get approval from 3/4 of the states. Well, that's a lot of different steps and a lot of hoops to jump through, and those hoops aren't even very easy to jump through. All right, now that you guys have finished your notes, what you're going to do is review your notes. You're going to look for some reasons why people would want to keep the Electoral College and reasons why they would want to get rid of the Electoral College. In your notes, you're just going to go ahead and make a little T-chart where you say keep it in one column, get rid of it in another column. You may only come up with maybe 2 or 3 different reasons combined. That's not really enough to make an informed decision. So in order to make an informed decision, you're going to go ahead and go to Google Classroom. You're going to click on this Debating the Electoral College link, and it'll take you to a website that looks like this. The nice thing about this website is it kind of lays out in this summary right here, reasons to keep the Electoral College and reasons to abolish or get rid of the Electoral College. If you are not really sure like what this one means or any of these bullet points mean, you can go back into that article and just look for a deeper explanation. Once you're finished with that, you're going to go ahead and click on that Padlet link, and you're going to decide whether you think we should keep the Electoral College, get rid of it, or maybe you're just not sure yet, or only a little part of it should be changed, but we should keep the rest. Whichever way you believe, you're going to go ahead and post your thinking. Just make sure you put your name somewhere on your post, either as the title or even at the very, very bottom.